popular decision, but you are expected to take those decisions. So we are here to give you some knowledge, some skills, in order to navigate through and lead your institution. We're going to give you some motivation, and remember, as the leader or as the manager in your curriculum unit, which is grade 4, 5 to 6 intermediate phase, you need to have a vision. That is why even in our department, we do have a vision. So make sure that you do have a vision so that you're able to manage that structure that has been given to you. You cannot have a vision without a goal. Have a goal in place, and please don't work in isolation. Be a team builder. Work as a team and make sure that your educators, people that are reporting under you, are motivated. Right, this is the agenda for today. It is our tradition to start with the GDE vision and the mission statement. We're going to give you some motivational quote. I think motivation is needed. We are where we are today in life because someone somewhere motivated us. So we're going to talk about the purpose of the meeting. We're going to share more information. Why are we here? And we're also going to talk about the legislative framework. What is it that governs us? We need to be enlightened in as far as the policies and the circulars that are governing us. We're also going to talk about profiling educators. Why are we supposed to profile them? We're also going to talk about lesson planning, the curriculum delivery and the tracking, as well as the moderation of task. What is it that is required when you moderate a task? And then at the end, we're going to take some questions and answers. And if you do have some questions, colleagues, we'll be glad if you can ask before the end of the presentation, because sometimes we find that you do have some questions and you are bottling. So instead of waiting until the end, you are free to ask those questions. Memanzini is here. She's in the background. She'll be able to take some of the questions, because where I'm sitting, I'm on a slideshow. I won't be able to see some of the questions that are coming forth. Now, colleagues, like I indicated, that it is our tradition to start with the vision and the mission of the GDE. We always talk about making sure that our learners are inspired, making sure that, learners are valued and so on. But, if we don't have, meetings like this where HODs are capacitated, believe me, our learners are not going to be valued. Our learners are not going to be inspired, because after this presentation, after this meeting, without any doubt, we want to believe that you are going to be inspired, because you are going to walk out from this meeting differently. You will be, we'll be upskilling you, making sure that when you go back to your institution, you are going to turn things around. Now, part of the mission statement says, we need to commit ourselves to provide functional and modern schools in our institution. And for us to do that, then our learners are going to, find it very easy to receive quality teaching and learning. But if we're not committed, if we don't provide these functional and modern schools, unfortunately, our quality of teaching and learning is going to be low. So we need to make sure that we promote and protect the right of every learner that we have in our institution. So each and every learner that we have, colleagues, very, very important. Let us make it a point that we go out all out there and inspire and make sure that our children are actually valued. Right, as leaders, once one said to me, in fact, he was asking me, what is leadership? And out of our discussion, we then Leadership is not about control. Leadership is about inspiration. Leaders are expected to inspire people to want to do something. If you are a leader and the people that you are leading are not inspired, therefore there's something wrong. So we want you to inspire those educators in our institution, and in inspiring them, then we can then hold them accountable, because as managers, you need to hold people accountable for doing something. So we are going to train you, we are going to empower you, and as you are empowered, then you'll be able to make sure that these educators are held accountable for doing something. But unfortunately, if you're not, how are you going to make them accountable for doing something? Now, remember, I indicated in our agenda items that we are going to talk about why are we here? The purpose of this meeting. Why are we calling you? You know, we once had this meeting, I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken, which was held by Mr. Sikuni. It was a general, HOD meeting, but this one, it's specific. This one, it's about the social science subject, because sometimes we get to institutions and we give reports, and, HODs, they don't know what to do, because we have never, come to your rescue in as far as capacitating your position, as well as ensuring that you do well in managing the curriculum. So today we want to provide that framework so that we can assist you in managing the structure. Remember, the curriculum structure stops with you. So we are here today to provide that framework. We want to share some strategies. We're not going to come up with policies or, new circulars and so on. We are not going to, we don't want you to change what you are doing, but rather we are here to give you some strategies. What is it that you can do? Because, managing curriculum, colleagues, it's not a child's play. We understand, especially because as HODs, you have so many responsibilities to carry. We are aware that you are not managing social science. You are also managing other, subjects. So we felt that it's very, very important for us, to share some strategies that can be used by you as HODs to monitor and track the curriculum delivery. We want you we want to empower you so that you are able to protect teaching time. You need to be empowered. You need to know how many hours are allocated for social science, how many percentage and educators supposed to cover per week. Remember, there's curriculum taking tool that tells us how many percentages are supposed to be covered per week. So we want you to know these things so that you are able to protect teaching time and so on. We want to assist you, colleagues, as you moderate these formal assessments. We want you to be aware about, those indicators, that are there in the SBA moderation tool. What is it that you need to check? The minimum indicators that are there, so that when you moderate papers, you don't just do shallow, just religious, kind of a moderation. We want you to be in depth and what is it that is expected of you. Colleagues, each and every subdirectorate or department are governed by law. So we need to be aware about the legislative framework within our system. Let's, familiarize ourselves with the national education policies that we have. There's the South African Schools Act, the Employment of Education Act, and the circular number 38 of 2007. These are some of the, a legislative framework that we have. We have a lot of them. So make sure that you know what is happening. Let's not have these documents in our file and we don't peruse them, because these are the policies that will make you and I and whoever, to know what is it that they are expected to do. So knowing the legislative framework, colleagues, is very, very important. When you are managing, when you are leading this section, you need to know what is it that governs what. So if we are not aware of this legislative framework, I'm afraid, colleagues or teachers are going to do whatever they want to do with us. So we need to make sure that we familiarize ourselves with the policies, the latest circulars that we have in our institution. Let us not be ignorant, colleagues. Let's empower ourselves with the laws that we have, the legislative framework. It's very, very important. Right. We spoke about profiling teachers. It's very, very important as the HOD to know your teacher. You need to develop that deeper understanding of who the educator is. We need to understand, we need to have that deeper understanding, So this reflects on what motivates and challenges them when teaching. So when we have this deeper understanding of our educators, we'll have an indication of what is it that is actually motivating them. What is it that is actually challenging them? Because, teachers have got different challenges. There are so many things that are motivating them. Some of the things are challenging them. So there are so many things. So we need to profile these teachers. We need to know what qualifications they have and so on. Remember, they went to the university. They majored in different subjects. Some of them are not measured in social science. Some are measured in, maths and science. And these educators are with you and they are teaching social science. You'll find that some of them are not even comfortable with them. So that is why it's very, very important to profile them, have a deeper understanding of who these educators are so that you can have a clear picture of the teachers that you are working with. The next one is to make sure that when you allocate subjects, let's not, give, teachers subjects because you just want to complete the timetable. And this is worrying. It looks like a subject like social science is one of the subjects that is given to people that are, that are not having, subjects to teach. So let's have this fulfilling wish list. Let's give it to them before we allocate and say, you are going to teach English, you're going to teach this particular subject and so on. Let's give educators wish list. And I'm telling you, once you give someone a wish list, that particular person will be passionate about teaching because you have given him the right to choose rather than giving a teacher any subject because you feel like giving it to him. So have a record of what subject they have taught previously. Remember, some are not teaching subject for the first time. Manzini, there's a noise in the background. Can you please assist?
I'm checking, sir. I will
Okay, thank you so
definitely
much.
mute the colleague.
Thank you so much. So have a record of what subject they have taught previously so that you can have a reference, because this thing of changing, teachers, this year you're teaching grade 5 social science, next year you're teaching English and so on, it's not helping. Let's have that progression. Let's have that record. Check what is it that they were teaching. That is why we're talking about what profiling the teacher. So the last one is to allocate the subject to an educator who will do justice in teaching the subject. Teachers, sometimes you give them a subject to teach and you realize that this teacher, in fact, he or she is not willing to teach this subject. So let's make it a point that when we allocate the subject to an educator, we allocate the subject to someone who's going to do justice in teaching the subject. We're not going to talk much about this. In our IP resource link, we do have the teacher file content page. We're going to talk about that as we give announcement towards the end of this presentation. But The long and short of the content page is supposed to be more or less the same as this, but if you have other items that you think are very important so that you can have all your resources, you are more than welcome to modify this one. But this is just a standard procedure to say the teacher file content page is supposed to have all these items that are listed here. So, and when you have a teacher file content page like this, let's make it a point, colleagues, as you check teacher files, make sure that they follow the content page. You mustn't have a personal class and composite timetable only to find that in that divider there's something else. So it has to be consistent. If it's personal, class timetable, policies, and so on, let's follow that sequence so that when we check and when you check as an HOD, you don't get lost. You know what is it that is there and so on. So let's make it a point that this is in place. Right. Listen, gentlemen, before we talk about lesson planning and preparation, allow me, on behalf of Mem Manzini as well, to thank the colleague for ensuring that the provincial lesson plans are filed in the teacher file. Without any doubt, when we get to schools, believe it or not, we always find these provincial lesson plans. We are grateful for that. But the expectation is that we need to use a pencil to reflect the dates. And this is just a framework. We're not saying that adopt it as it is. And you'll agree with me, colleagues, that the provincial lesson plans were delivered to us before COVID-19. And you will notice that some of the topics have been omitted, some are integrated, and so on. So if we implement this provincial lesson plan as it is, believe it or not, you are going to teach topics that are not supposed to be taught. So make sure that as long as you teaching, you need to make it a point that you don't adopt this as a provision. I mean, as you know, the lesson plan is just a framework. It's a point of reference. So we expect you to have a pencil to show this is in fact, we assume that you are actually using it when there's a pencil to reflect the dates, and the reflection is regarded as evidence that you are indeed using this lesson plan. But over and above that, we expect you to develop your own personal lesson plan, and so that you customize it so that it talks to your institution, it talks to the resources that you are using, because the provisional lesson plan, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't have the textbook that you are using. This is a lesson plan that is generic. It's for the nation. It's not for you in your own institution. Hence, we say we request you to develop your own personal lesson plan. Right. In as far as curriculum delivery is concerned, colleagues, remember that we are driving the recovery ATPs. So there are content topics and there are subtopics in our revised, recovery ATPs. Let us refrain, make sure that you check your learner book, the teacher's learner books. They must refrain from teaching from the textbook. Like what I've just indicated previously, that the GDE lesson plan, of course, it's a standard lesson plan, but unfortunately, we are driving the revised ATP. So some of the topics that are in the textbook, you'll find that as per the revised ATP, those topics are not supposed to be taught. So curriculum delivery must emanate from the revised or the recovery ATP. It's a plea. The topics that are in the ATP are supposed to be in the learner book. This makes it very easy for us to track the curriculum. But if we just, educators just write activity 2 page so and so, activity 5 page so and so, we don't know which activity are they teaching. So please, colleagues, let's make it a point when you check curriculum delivery, ensure that educators are using the subtopics and the content topics that comes from the ATP. Remember, a textbook is a resource. It's not a policy. So we are teaching policy. We are not teaching a resource. In our curriculum delivery, in the social science, we request that when educators teach, they must start with building the vocabulary. They must start by building the vocabulary. It's very, very important. You cannot just walk into a class, you talk about scales, you talk about the side views, the plain views, you talk about democracy, and you don't introduce those vocabulary words, you don't define them, and so on. You'll be talking to yourself because learners won't understand what you're talking about. And once after building that vocabulary, it must be evident, of course, in the learner book. What is it that you were teaching about? Give summary notes of what you were teaching about. Because remember, the policy says learners are supposed to read and write. So writing is very, very important. Give them summary notes, let them write. You don't have to give them a lengthy, a piece of writing. Just give them a small piece of writing in a form of summary notes so that they know what is it that was taught. And this will even help the parents at home to be able to follow what is it that learners were taught, rather than having activities and there is no evidence of teaching. Remember, it's teaching and assessment. So once we see an activity and there's no summary notes, then we take it that there was no teaching. Because remember, this is evident that teaching took place as long as there is vocabulary, words, and the summary of what was taught in class. Then we take it that indeed teaching was done. So very, very important. Let's not duplicate textbooks, colleagues. Ensure that educators are not duplicating textbook. They must not just, make copies of the whatever information is on the textbook. They need to rewrite it, make it simple in their own words. And we normally say, let's not be a slave of a textbook. Let's use other resource material to deliver the curriculum. Let's avoid global marking. Normally, when we do marking, when we check, you'll find that there's a mark that comes from from one page to the other, or from, left to right. You don't know where is the child supposed to see where the mistake. So make sure that the marking that you do, it's a small tick. Let's not have big ticks. We normally call it a big Nike, So let's not have a big Nike. Let's just have a small tick when we do the marking. And let's avoid these remarks of saying seen. Yes, you have seen it. So what? That is the next question. So let's not just say seen. If we want to remark, let's remark you have done a good job. You've done so well. If we want to make corrective marking, let's just indicate this is wrong or this is correct. Continue doing the good work and so on. It's not just say seen, because it doesn't have weight to say I've seen the work. So let's have, detailed remarks when we do control learner books. Correction must be done consistently. Colleagues, let's not do corrections today and tomorrow we don't do corrections. I spoke about reading and writing. This is policy, colleagues. It's not me. It says they need to read and write. Just check the CAPS document. I think in each and every page, I can't remember from which page to which page, but if you read at the bottom of your CAPS document, it says learners are supposed to read and write. So let's ensure that that is taking place in the curriculum delivery. In our agenda item, we spoke about the curriculum delivery, not curriculum delivery, rather the curriculum reporting tool. So we want you, colleagues, to know how to use the educator tool, which is the curriculum tracking tool, to check the content coverage. And most of the time we get into institution, we don't see this curriculum tracking tool. And for your information, this curriculum tracking tool, it is the summary of the ATP. We've just summarized it and make it simpler for you to track the curriculum, the number of periods. Memanzeni?
Yes, sir. It's Miss. Is it Miss or Mr. Nancy Mulauti? He must deactivate the camera, please. Miss Nancy, kindly deactivate the camera as well. Because I keep on muting Ma'am Nancy, but she keeps on unmuting herself and having the camera on. Can she kindly ensure that the camera as well as the mic is actually deactivated, please? Mr. Tsepo, Ntate Tsepo from Tebediswanong, can you kindly deactivate your camera, please, sir? Ntate Tsepo, he's on the phone. Oh my God. You can continue, sir. I will try and get hold of him, I think, on the side.
All right. Thank you so much, madam,
Okay, sir.
for
Thanks.
managing that. Right,
Ntate
colleague.
Tsepo, kupa o deactivate the camera. Thank you. You can continue, sir.
Thank you, Madam Manzini. You know, HODs, this curriculum taking tool, it's one of the best tools. It's one of, I don't know how to explain it. It's so easy to use. We've developed it to an extent that you don't even have to, take your calculator to calculate how many percentage and so on. I'll take you through what is it that I'm actually referring to. But the policy says we've got 30 minutes per period and it's weighted at 0.42%. Sorry about that. It's not 0.42, it's 0.42. Now, if we have two periods, which is 30 minutes plus 30 minutes, which is an hour, so it's 42 by 2, it's going to give us 0.83%. Now, a week, we're supposed to have 3 hours. That's what policy says in as far as social science is concerned. 3 hours, which gives us 2.5% per week. So once you use the curriculum checking tool, which I'm going to demonstrate very soon, you'll see how easy it is. Make sure that you get hold of this checking tool. We normally, share, even in our IP resource link, it's there. At the end of this meeting, please give yourself time, go to the link and check. You will see this tracking tool, it's there. Easy to use and it's very, very easy. Right, let me try to unshare this one and then try to show you what I mean by using the checking tool. It's so easy to navigate through. I trust that you can see it. Now, when you look here, it says, let me take it up. Right. We are now in term 3. Remember, term 1 is 25%. Term 2, it's 50%. Now we are heading towards 75, meaning that at the end of this term, we are expected to be covering 75. So I'll just want to show you exactly what is it that I was referring to. If you can see here, it says number of period. For instance, term 3, the geography part, the very first week says number of written activities. Say you are given 2 weeks, rather 2 period, and you've got topics that you are expected to cover. Remember, if you can even go to your, your ATP, this topic that you are seeing here, it is there in your ATP. That is why this is a summary of the ATP. So in actual fact, once you follow this, you are indeed following the ATP. So it says number of written activity is 1. And then all what you need to do, you forget about these other areas. Just concentrate on the area which is shaded in green. Now, I'm going to type 1 here. When I type 1, you see it's going to auto-calculate here. It's going to give us 0.83. And then if I type 1 again, I don't have to do anything. I just have to type 1. It will say 0.83 and 0.83. And when we go down, let me just go down a bit. so that you can see the auto calculations that I'm referring to. So 2 activities are weighted at 166. How do I know? One activity is 0.83 and this other one is 0.83. So when you check here, 2 activities are giving us 1.66. So if we ask you, how far are you in as far as curriculum coverage is concerned, week 1, you'll say I'm now sitting at 1.66. So if you type 1 again, it will auto calculate. And see here, it says 2.5 over 2.5. Why? You have done all the activities. Say, for instance, you didn't do these activities. Then you are able to say, okay, in as far as curriculum coverage is concerned, I'm behind with one activity. How do I know? Because 083 and 083 gives us 166. So if you go back and redo this activity, then you'll be sitting at 2.5. So this tool, colleagues, make it a point that you have it. This is the tool that is going to help you manage and track whether colleagues are on track in as far as curriculum coverage is concerned. Let me go back to my presentation. See where I was. Right, this is what I was referring to. Unfortunately, this one is just a presentation. I won't be able to show you what I was talking to you, but this is the image of the reporting tool. It looks like this. Right. Colleagues, remember, you are the manager of the subject. And as a manager of the subject, you must have documents in place. These documents are not supposed to be in position of the HODs. I mean, the teachers. You as the HOD, you are expected to ensure that these resources are there in the subject teacher's file. You are expected to have the monthly subject meetings. Like now, after this meeting, you can have a small meeting and say, guys, this is what has transpired during the HOD meeting. Give them this information. Let them know that you know what is actually happening. Because some of the teachers, they think that because you are not attending a subject meeting, therefore you don't know. Share this presentation if you can at the end of this. But of course, we are not going to share it today because we still have another meeting sometime next week. So at the end, we are going to share this information. Please make sure that your teachers know that you know that this is what you are expected to do and so on. So have this monthly subject meeting. Like most of the time, we do have the PLG meetings. After having the PLG meetings, have your own meetings. Have your own meetings and then make sure that you share this information with them. So at least if you can have one, it's not bad. Per month, it's okay. If you can have 2, it's fine, depending on your schedule and so on. Have your programs in place to supervise the teachers, colleagues. They must not just, run the curriculum and you don't have programs in place to monitor and track the curriculum coverage. Because remember, at the end of the day, you need to account. So have that in place, have that program in place, have a session in your management plan. Make sure that you have this program where you're going to manage, rather monitor and check the curriculum coverage. It can be once or twice a month, it's fine, as long as there is evidence of monitoring of curriculum coverage in your institution. Right, the next one is teacher file and learner book control. Make sure that you have that. I see some of the book control when we get to school. We see that indeed it's happening. So we are just reminding you, those that are not aware of this, make sure that there is evidence of, book control reports. And if you don't have a tool, like I have indicated, you go to the intermediate phase unit link, resource link. All the tools are there, even the reporting tools for the book control and any other tools are there. So make sure that you visit this link and then help yourself with the tools that we have shared there. Right. Sometimes we will find that teacher A is moving from this subject to another because, you know, sometimes you find that the teacher is leaving and there's a gap. And yeah, so those who are, you know, moving internally or externally, going out from the institution, let there be a handover, please. Let them not take the files wherever. Remember, a file is always the resource for the school, even if educators have personally developed those files, they don't belong to them. So let's ensure that there is handover of reports and files to the next educator who will be teaching the subject. Colleagues, I'm not going to waste time in as far as the program of assessment is concerned, but make sure that this is in place. And the program of assessment, please, it has to be per school. Remember, this does not have dates. So your program of assessment, make sure that this program of assessment is there for your own school, because remember, you don't assess on the same dates. So make sure that you have a column for the date to say when is this project going to be assessed and so on. So I'm not going to talk about this. And I remember during the HOD meeting, this was shared. This is just to remind you that please make sure that you follow this. Make sure that you have this copy so that teachers don't just, you know, assess any. I remember, I'm not going to mention the name of the school where I went. Instead of assessing a project for geography, it is a test. And I indicated that, no, it can be a test for geography this time around. It's a test. It's not, it's a project. It's not a test. So if you don't know about this, you won't be in a position to manage your teachers. So make sure that you have this tool in place. Now, we advise that colleagues, when you set question papers, when educators set question papers, they must attach a grid to show the cognitive levels, because most of the questions that we see, believe me, most of them are here, the low order question and a bit of middle order question. Here is a no-go area to some of the educators. So make sure that when educators set a question paper, they must attach a grid. I'll show you what I mean about that when I get to the next slide. So, and the questions are supposed to be progressive, colleagues. Let's not have a high order question or a middle order question and then a high order question just like that. So it has to be first, let learners, you know, do the matching. Let them indicate whether statements are true or false. Let them list or name whatever. This is a low order category where they have to do that. Before you you move from lower education, lower order to middle order, make sure that there is a progression from here. And then here in the middle order question, that's where you want to check whether the learners do understand, they do comprehend. If you give them a passage, remember in social science it's a source-based kind of a subject. So you will give them, let's say, an extract, then you ask questions, you want them to explain, you want them to describe, and so on. So this is a middle order question. So make sure that this category is being catered for. Part of the middle order question is to maybe apply the knowledge. You give them knowledge and then you say to them, okay, there's a data handling of the map, and then they apply the knowledge you've taught them about, or you've given them a particular map and you want them to do a data handling, and then that's knowledge. So ask question around that. Give them a data handling type of equation so that they can apply the knowledge that you have taught them in class. You see, before you get to higher order question, make sure that this section has been addressed. Then from there, then you can give them a paragraph question. Then this is a higher order question. So let's not have this questions going haphazardly. Very, very important, colleagues. Now, the analysis grid that I was talking to is this. In the question paper, then there will be a grid like this one. It will say analysis grid for cognitive levels. On top, you'll have, you know, the name of the school and whatever the examiner, the moderator, and so on. Underneath, then you'll have this analysis grid. It has to be attached to the question paper. Now, you'll also indicate the number, the question numbers. For instance, question 1.1 to 1.4. And let's not have question 1, question 2, question 3. It's confusing. Question 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. What is it that you want learners to do? Which skills are you assessing? You want them to recall the information, This is level 1 question. This is low order question. They are going to state whether the statement is true or false. Of course, the weighting cannot be 8 marks. If it's 4, because it's a low order question, the marks are not supposed to be high. It's a low order question. Even the marking, the weighting has to be low. We can't have a true or false question and then we have 4 multiplied by 2 and it's 8 marks. No, because learners are not doing much here. It's a low order question. So here they are recalling the information like I indicated. You have given them information, you're checking their knowledge. And then the next question will be 2.1.2, just like that. Here, you have taught them definition, So you want to check whether they do understand the concept that you taught them. So here it will be a low order question. They will be comprehending the information. You want to check their understanding and so on. So you can see that this is a progression. It's from low order question and you're going to the middle order question and it will be the high order question. And the mark allocation is very, very important for low order question, but we'll talk about that as we move on. The low order question for grade 5, this is just an example. The low order question, it has to be 9 marks. And then the middle order question, it's supposed to be 15 marks. The high order question, it's supposed to be 6. So if you plus 9, if you add 9, 15, and 6, it will give you 30. So if you have this, it's easy for you, colleagues, to be able to spot whether the cognitive levels are distributed correctly or not. Now, in as far as moderation of question paper is concerned, these are some of the minimum indicators. Remember, in our agenda, we spoke about the minimum indicators. What is it that you'll be looking at? For instance, you'll be looking at the layout of the question paper. Make sure that the question paper is divided into sections. Ne? And then the low order question that I've been talking to, questions are supposed to be scaffolding. In other words, they need to progress from less difficult, which is low order, to the most difficult, and then just like that. So it's low order, middle order, and high order questions. So you need to check this layout so that if questions are not structured, you need to be able to say, no, take this question 1, take it to questions so and so, so that that progression is evident. Another indicator, it is the technical aspect. Make sure that the name of the school is there and the district name is there. Why the district? Sometimes we have the moderation, and in the moderation, you'll find that provincial moderation, you'll find that there are many schools from different parts of our province. So if we have a school name and it doesn't have a district name, it's so difficult to locate that school. But you need to make sure that you have that, the subject name and the discipline. If it's geography, let it be geography, and so on. So I'm not going to read verbatim, but these are some of the indicators. This is what you need to check. These are the technical aspects that you need to check when you moderate the question papers. The numbering of pages, very, very important, colleagues, the totaling of marks. So when you number the pages, it's so easy. When you are making copies, okay, page 2 is missing, page 3 is missing, and so on. So if we don't have that in place, unfortunately, you'll give learners question papers and then they will go through the question paper only to find that one paper is missing and so on. The name of the examiner and the moderator's name, all are supposed to be there. The duration of the paper, everything is supposed to be in place. So these are the technical aspects, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to take into account. Now, this is what I was referring to, the analysis grid that I was referring to. You see, here's the learner's name, the subject, these are technical aspects that I spoke to you. and then you indicate the examiner, the moderator, everything, the mark allocation, the duration, the date, and then from there, you attach this analysis grid. Once you have this analysis grid, it's easy to say, this question paper is not adhering to the cognitive level. Please go and fix it and so on. So it makes life easier for you, HODs, when you moderate papers. Right, this is the technical aspect. It's continuing in as far as the presentation is concerned. Make sure that the language is so clear. Let's have a language construction that is very clear. Let's not give them questions that are ambiguous. Instructions are supposed to be clear, colleagues, so that learners are able to understand without any confusion. We spoke about the numbering of questions. Remember, I said you need to number them accordingly. If it's question 1, it will be 1, 1.1, 1.2, just like that. If it's question 2, it will be 2.1, 2.2 going forward. I'm not going to waste time on that. I already explained that. Right, the illustration and the scenario, colleagues, when we make copies of the images or the source-based material, if we attach them, make sure that we attach something that is clear. Let's avoid should I call it a colored images. Let's try to have the black and white. When you duplicate them, they are not going to lose its quality, but if it's a colored image, it becomes a challenge. So let's make sure that these sources are very clear, so that when we duplicate them, they are not distorted and so on. So questions that follow the source must be relevant, and learners will be able to refer to the source used. Right, in as far as the content coverage is concerned, very, very important, colleagues. Remember, we've got the program of assessment. We need to follow that one to the latter. So the topics have been prescribed there. So the content of the question paper, it has to be CAPS compliant. It has to be CAPS compliant. Let's not allow educators to set anything which is outside the CAPS document. So if we have the resources in place, we have our curriculum taking tool, we have our revised recovery ATPs, there's no way in which educators are going to set question papers that are not CAPS compliant. The weighting of the topic is very, very important. We cannot have a paragraph question that is out of 20 marks, It's about, if I'm not mistaken, it's 6, if not 5. So let's make sure that the weighting is correct. I spoke about the true or false question. We cannot give 4 marks for a true or multiple choice question. We give 2 marks. No. So the weighting of the topics are very important, and the weighting of the questions are very, very important. So questions cover the content that is specified according to term, the ATP. For instance, in term 2, you were expected, educators was expected to set term 1 and term 2, but fortunately, when we check, you'll find that educators only set term 1. I mean term 2, term 1 was never covered. So weighting of the questions and content specified terms are very, very, very important. The subject-specific terminology is very, very important. In the history and geography, we're talking about sources. Let's not talk about images. Let's use the correct use of subject-specific terminology so that learners are familiar with the language. And let us use the language that is age-appropriate. Let's not use bombastic words for these learners. So the terminology is very important, and the language usage is very, very important. Right, let's make sure that per sections, marks are corrected, are calculated correctly per section. Let's not have a section without marks that have been calculated. The distribution of marks, colleagues, there is a correlation between mark allocation and level of difficulty. This is what I have been talking to, and let me repeat it for the very last time, that we cannot give, easy questions and then we allocate more marks, or we give high order question and we give, few marks. So marks are supposed to be according to the level of difficulty. Right, this is what we were saying, and as far as the cognitive level is concerned, make sure that there is a spread of various types of questions, colleagues. When we set question papers, let's make sure that the multiple choice question is there, the paragraph writing is there, and the paragraph writing, let me emphasize this, there must be a rubric attached to it. Sometimes you see a question paper, there's no rubric, and you ask yourself, how were the marks allocated if the rubric is not attached there? And then when you check the program of assessment, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see that they are talking about paragraph questions, they're talking about the source-based question, they're talking about, definitions and so on. So make sure that your question papers has different types of questions. Then your question paper is going to be balanced. If you don't see a paragraph, you don't see the source-based activities and so on, reject that question paper and tell the educator, please fix this. This is not supposed to be done in this way because according to the program of assessment, you need to do 1, 2, 3. Right. I'm not going to waste time with regard to this. Colleagues, we spoke about the cognitive level before, but just to give you a sense of, the breakdown in as far as the percentage is concerned. Now, this may differ, or in fact, it does differ from one subject to the other. In our case for grade 4, the low order question, in fact, grade 4 up to 6, the low order question is supposed to be 30 marks. Middle order is 50%, not 30%, right? I mean, 30 marks is 30% for low order, and then 50% for middle order, and then 20% for high order question. So this is just a percentage, a raw mark for the 30% that we are referring to. I'm not going to calculate that, but if you calculate, you'll see that for a 25 question paper for the grade 5, the 8% of the 30% of 30% from the question paper, which is out of 25, it's 8 marks. So there's no need to, calculate that, but you will liaise yourself with that. So questions are in a way that they are not easily spotted or predicted by learners. Let's not ask questions that are very easy, learners can just pick it up. I'm not saying that it has to be difficult. I'm not saying that it has to be too easy, but questions are not supposed to be easily spotted or predicted by learners. It's like you're giving them a memorandum. So let's refrain from that. When we moderate question papers, colleagues, let's check that. Colleagues, we have come to the end of the meeting. So I just want to give the following announcement and to acknowledge and some acknowledgement. Let me start by the second item. We just want to thank teachers who participated in the Cluster Olympiad. Colleagues, without your involvement, without you organizing these learners from the school level to participate in the Olympiad, believe me, we're not going to make it. We can't do it from the district level. We rely on you and we say thank you for that. We are saying this from the bottom of our hearts, myself and Mem Manzini, for facilitating that activity. And there's going to be the District Olympiad, which is going to take place on the 24th of August. It will be at Robert Shem. Next week, I think it will be on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. So the schools that are, or rather the learners who did well, they know themselves, and the teachers concerned, they know. So it's just to remind you that it will be on the 24th. So there are some logistics. We'll talk to you at a later stage with regard to the District Olympiad. How are we going to run it and so on? Now, you are reminded, colleagues, to make use of the resources that have been shared in our different platforms. We spoke about the IP resource link and this resource link that you are seeing it here. If you click on it, everything that you are looking for, and it's not for only social science, it's for other subjects as well. When you go to this, you will find massive resources from this link. The assessment program, I spoke about it, colleagues. Let's make it a point that it is being adhered to. It's a policy. Let's not deviate from that. So make sure that you have a copy so that you can hold your teachers accountable to say, we said according to this program. So the presentation that I shared via the digital platform after the meeting are expected to be downloaded. Please download this. We're gonna share this document with you, but not today, like I indicated, sometimes next week. Make sure that you print it and you file it in your HOD file. Right. Thank you, colleagues. I just have this quote to give it to you. In my closing remark, it says, a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. But when you add to that illiterate tongue or pen, then you have something very special. It is not beyond our power to create a world in which all children have access to a good education. Those who do not believe this have small imaginations. I thank you.